So, Sri Isopanishad, mantra 12, Andam tama pravishanti.
Andham tama pravisanti.
Ye sambhutim upasate.
Ye sambhutim upasate.
Tato bhuya ivate tamo.
Tato bhuya ivate tamo.
Ya usambhyutam rata.
Ya sambhutyam rata.
Somebody like to read? Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
I'll read it.
You can read today?
Yeah, I'll read it. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm fine today. Yeah, okay. Okay, translation. Those who are engaged in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance, and still more so do the worshippers of the impersonal absolute. Purport. The Sanskrit word asambhuti refers to those who have no independent existence. Sambhuti is the absolute personality of Godhead, who is absolutely independent of everything. In the Bhagavad Gita 10.2, the absolute personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna states, can you read that part? Yeah.
Na me vidusura gana prabhavam na maharshaya aham aditi devanam maharishinam cha sarvashaha.
Neither the host of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences, for in every respect I am the source of the demigods and sages. Thus Krishna is the origin of the powers delegated to demigods, great sages and mystics. Although they are endowed with great powers, these powers are limited, and thus it is very difficult for them to know how Krishna himself appears by his own internal potency in the form of a man.
So Krishna is speaking in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, text 2. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He's the absolute truth. That's the reason till today we are trying to study the Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita is the song of God, spoken by God himself. Krishna himself spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna 5,000 years ago, but that was not the first time he spoke. He had spoken the same knowledge, Krishna himself says, to the sun god millions of years ago. And Krishna is eternally speaking this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. In some other universe, right now, he's speaking the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna because this knowledge is eternal. It's not material, it's spiritual, so it's eternal. So here, the absolute personality of Godhead himself, Krishna himself, is saying that even the demigods, even the great sages, they can't understand me in full. They are coming from me, but they can't understand me in full. So we have to understand that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Lord Brahma, in Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadi Radir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. Lord Brahma, who is a great authority in spiritual knowledge, in his song, which is called Brahma Samhita, he is glorifying Krishna's position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's saying Ishvara Parama Krishna, that Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. Satchidananda Vigraha, his form is not material, but it is transcendental. Sat Chit Ananda, eternal, full of bliss, full of knowledge. Anadi Radir Govinda, Sarva Karana Karanam, that Krishna is the cause of all causes. There is no cause beyond Krishna. So the demigods are appointed agents by Krishna in the management of the universe. Just as we have a government, there is the president or the prime minister who's the head of the government, and he appoints various cabinet ministers, like Minister of Transport, Minister of Education, Minister of Agriculture, so many different departments. Similarly, the demigods, the great sages, they are appointed as ministers to manage this universe. They are devotees of Krishna, but they are highly qualified, and that's the reason they are being given this post. So even though they are great sages, great mystics, sometimes even they get bewildered by Krishna's position, as we can see in the Brahma Vimohan Leela. You know that Lord Brahma, he steals the cows and the calves and the cowherd boys because he wanted to test, is this small boy still actually God? Is he my worshipable Lord? This boy who's playing with the cowherd boys, he's having a picnic, and in his hand he's holding some yogurt rice with some pieces of fruit, and he's eating. Is this really God, my supreme worshipable Lord? So even Lord Brahma sometimes comes in illusion. So he hides the boys cowherd boys and the calves. But when he comes back, they're still there. Because who can be a greater mystic than Krishna? Krishna expanded himself into as many cowherd boys, into as many calves. And Brahma himself gets bewildered. And then Brahmaji offers wonderful prayers. They are there in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10.
Hare Krishna. Buddha.
Hare Krishna, yes. So Brahma then offers wonderful prayers to Krishna, asking for forgiveness that he could not understand the supreme position of Krishna. The beautiful prayers in Canto 10, Chapter 14. Also, we can see that even Lord Indra sometimes gets bewildered as to the position of Krishna. You know, Govardhan Puja soon coming up. The next day of Diwali is what we celebrate, the day when Krishna lifted the Govardhan hill. So Lord Indra also gets bewildered as to the position of Lord Krishna being the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he just showers Vrindavan with the clouds which are meant for the destruction of the universe, you know. There's so much rain, there's so much thunder, because Indra thought that he will be able to destroy Vrindavan. Just because Krishna stopped the Indra Puja. Nanda Baba was going to do the Indra Puja, and Lord Krishna is like, no need to do Indra Puja. Worship Govardhan instead. You know, Govardhan is giving us everything we need. Govardhan and Krishna are non-different. We have to understand Krishna and Govardhan, they are non-different. So anyway, Indra gets offended and he throws these clouds and the rains, and Krishna lifted the Govardhan hill for 7 days and 7 nights. And all the Brajvasis are under the Govardhan hill and they're having loving pastimes. And then Indra realizes, oh my God, what did I do? This is my worshipful Lord. What am I trying to do here? Indra realizes his mistake. And then he's so ashamed of himself that he goes to Brahma. He says, how do I ask forgiveness from Krishna? Brahma says, take the Surabhi cow because Krishna loves cows. So Indra takes Surabhi with him. They offer Abhishek to Krishna. Then Indra offers prayers to Krishna for forgiveness. You know, so even the demigods sometimes get bewildered as to the supreme position of Krishna. This is what this verse is trying to say. Is that okay? Yeah. So, and Krishna, now Krishna appears by his own internal potency in the form of a man. Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita that fools deride me when I appear in the human form. Krishna says this in the Bhagavad Gita. What happens is, because Krishna is appearing in his own form, we mistake him as an ordinary man. We think, Krishna is just someone like me, or maybe just someone greater than me. Maybe he has some mystic powers, a little bit more better than me. Maybe he had some magic, or maybe he was a great king, or maybe this, or maybe that. But we have to understand, Krishna is the Supreme Lord. He is God himself. His body is not material. It is Sat Chit Ananda. So when he comes to the material world, he is coming by his own free will. Prabhupada would give us the example to explain the point. Prabhupada would say, just like there's a prison house. Yeah. So in the prison house, they are prisoners. Now, why the prisoners are there? Because they've done something and they are forced to come inside the prison. They were caught by the police, they're forced to come in the prison, and they have to wear the prison uniform, and they are bound by the laws of prison. Whatever is the laws of the prison, they have to follow that. Now, the king enters the prison. He is entering to see if there is anyone in the prison who is uh, like changed, who can be let out into the normal society. So there is a difference. You see, the prisoner was forced to come in, whereas the king comes by his will.
Recording in
And,
progress.
and the king takes his own, he wears his own kingly clothes. He does not wear prison clothes. And he can leave whenever he wants, just as he came whenever he wanted. Similarly, he can leave whenever he wants. Nobody can force him to stay there. But if the prisoner starts saying, oh my God, look, the king is also here, the king has also become a prisoner, then Krishna is saying that is foolish. Instead of taking advantage that God is here, let me speak to God. Maybe he can help me get out of here. Instead of doing that, if we start saying, oh my God, even the king has become a prisoner, then that's foolishness on part of the prisoner. So that's why Krishna is saying the fools deride me when I come in the human form. And Prabhupada is writing here that Krishna appears by his own internal potency. So we are forced to come. Nobody asks us a questionnaire, which planet you want to be born in, which family, which species, which gender. Nobody asks us. We just find ourselves in this body. We are forced in this body based on our desires and based on our karma. I'm gonna mute. There was some noise coming, so I had to mute someone. So anyway, so this is the difference between Krishna and us. Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and we are his part and parcel. We are also souls, but we are not the Supreme Soul. Krishna is the Supreme Soul. So we are part and parcel of God. Well, so we continue reading. If there's any comments or questions, kindly do raise them at any time. So we continue reading with this.
Yeah, okay. Many philosophers and great rishis or mystics try to distinguish the absolute from the relative by their tiny brain power. This can only help them reach the negative conception of the absolute without realizing any positive trace of the absolute. Definition of the absolute by negation is not complete. Such negative definitions lead one to create a concept of one's own. Thus, one imagines that the absolute must be formless and without qualities. Such negative qualities are simply the reversals of relatives, material qualities, and are therefore also relative. By conceiving of the absolute in this way, one can, at the utmost, reach the impersonal effulgence of God, known as Brahma, but one cannot make further progress to Bhagwan, the personality of Godhead.
So now, what happens is we may think, okay, I want to understand God. Very good, because we are part and parcel of God, so we need to know about God. Now, how to understand about God? So we may think, okay, I can use my own material mind to understand God. I'm using my mind to understand so many things in the material world. So I may use my mind to understand God. But we have to understand this very important point. Our mind is material. It is limited, whereas God is unlimited. God is spiritual. So we cannot understand the spiritual with our material mind. We cannot. And if we try to do so, we will think that God has no form. That is the ultimate that we will reach to. We will not be able to understand that God is a person. Because our mind, that's the limitation that it can go up to. Just like somebody who is studying in the 10th grade. So then that's what they read, that's what they study. The math that they study will be appropriate for 10th grade. They will not know what is the math of PhD. So trying to understand God by our mind is imperfect. We already spoke in the beginning of Sri Isopanishad that human beings have 4 defects: commit mistakes, imperfect senses, cheating propensity, and in illusion. So because of these defects, whatever conclusion we come to is going to be defective. So the conclusion that we will come to by using our mind about God is to understand that he is formless, but this knowledge is defective. We will not be able to understand, oh, God is a person. He's the supreme personality of Godhead.
Such mental speculators do not know that the absolute personality of Godhead is Krishna, that the impersonal Brahman is the glaring effulgence of his transcendental body, or that the Paramatma, the supersoul, is his all-pervading plenary representation. Nor do they know that Krishna has his internal form with its transcendental qualities of eternal bliss and knowledge. The dependent demigods and great sages imperfectly consider him to be powerful demigod, and they consider the Brahman effulgence to be the absolute truth. But the devotees of Krishna, by dint of their surrendering unto him and their unalloyed devotions, can know that he is the absolute person and that everything emanates from him. Such devotees continuously render loving service unto Krishna, the fountainhead of everything.
So now Srimad Bhagavatam states, Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagwaneti shabdayate. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 11. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So, or Bhagavan. Sorry, not and or Bhagavan. So, what is the Brahman? The Brahmajyoti, the light, the effulgence. What is it? Where is it coming from? Who is the Paramatma? We all say, oh, Paramatma is in everyone's heart, Paramatma is in every atom of the universe. Who is the Paramatma? Bhagavatam tells us the personality of Godhead, Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. Krishna himself is saying in Bhagavad Gita, all the Vedas are saying this, that Krishna, he is the Supreme Lord. And the Brahman, the Brahmajyoti that is coming, is the effulgence coming from his body. We say somebody's aura, like that. So this is the light which is coming from Krishna's body. His personal effulgence is what is called the Brahmajyoti, the Brahman. And Paramatma is his expansion. Krishna expands as Paramatma to enter this material world, to accompany us. He is sitting in our heart right now. So we are the Atma, Krishna is the Paramatma. The Brahmajyoti is the light coming from his body, and he is a person, supreme personality of Godhead. So the devotees understand this. Krishna tells to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita that I am giving you this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita because you are my devotee and my very good friend. So because Arjuna is not envious of Krishna, Krishna is imparting this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. So similarly, the devotees, because they are not envious of Krishna, they can understand Krishna's position as the absolute truth, as God. That Krishna, his form, his body, his form is eternal, is spiritual, is Sat Chit Ananda. It's full of bliss, full of knowledge, and it is eternal. Yeah, so someone may think that, oh, that Krishna is just merely a powerful demigod, and that the absolute truth is actually formless, is the Brahmajyoti. No, No, the Brahmajyoti is coming from Krishna. Krishna is the absolute truth, and the Brahmajyoti is coming from him. Yeah, so this is what all the scriptures are telling us, all the Vedas, they are telling us this about the absolute truth. Any comments? Any questions? Okay, no, then we continue.
In the Bhagavad Gita 7.20 to 23, it is said that only unintelligent, bewildered persons driven by a strong desire for sense gratification worship the demigods for the temporary relief of temporary problems. Since the living being is materially entangled, he has to be relieved from material bondage entirely to maintain permanent relief on the spiritual plane, where eternal bliss, life, and knowledge exist. Shri Isopanishad therefore instruct that we should not seek temporary relief of our difficulties by worshipping the dependents, demigods, who can bestow only temporary benefit. Rather, we must worship the absolute personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is all attractive and who can bestow upon us complete freedom from material bondage by taking us back home, back to Godhead.
So so Sri Isopanishad is also saying the same thing. Krishna also says the same thing in Bhagavad Gita chapter 7, text 20 to 23. We can see when we study the scriptures, all the scriptures, they speak the same thing. There is no contradiction. They're speaking of the absolute truth. Wherever there is truth, there is no contradiction. So Isopanishad is also saying this, Krishna is also saying this, that we are here in this material world because of our desires. Now, if we actually desire to get out of the material world, we need to worship Krishna. Bhagavatam says, we may be full of material desires, we have no material desires, or we desire liberation. Worship Krishna, because he will not only fulfill all our desires, but he will bring us back home, back to Godhead. You see, we may worship the demigods, and the demigods may fulfill our material desires, but they cannot bring us back home, back to Godhead. We will still remain in this world of birth and death. Now this life we are in, have a human form, but we don't know next life what kind of a form we get. But what happens is by worshipping Krishna, that Krishna not only fulfills our material desires, but he brings us to the spiritual world. So this is what Isopanishad is saying. Worship Krishna to get out of the material world. We may seek temporary benefit from the demigods, but that will still keep us in the material world. Won't be able to get out. Of course, Krishna does not force anyone's desire. Someone may desire, well, I want to continue being in the material world. Krishna does not interfere. He says, well, then you continue doing whatever you want to do. But if you really want to get out of this material world, then you come to me. So that's why the word must worship is written. Must worship the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Yeah, because only Krishna can give us freedom from material world, material bondage. No one else.
It is stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.23 that the worshippers of the demigods can go to the planets of the demigods. The moon worshippers can go to the moon, the sun worshippers to the sun, etc. Modern scientists are now venturing to the moon with the help of rockets, but this is not really a new attempt. With their advanced consciousness, human beings are naturally inclined to travel in outer space and to reach other planets, either by spaceships, mystic powers, or demigod worship. In the Vedic scriptures, it is stated that one can reach other planets by any one of these three ways, but the most common way is by worshipping the demigod presiding over a particular planet. In this way, one can reach the moon planet, the sun planet, and even Brahmaloka, the topmost planet in this universe. However, all the planets in the material universe are temporary residences. The only permanent planets are the Vaikuntalokas. These are found in the spiritual sky, where the personality of Godhead himself predominates. As Lord Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter, 16th canto.
16th verse, 8th chapter.
Okay,
16th
sorry.
verse. And yeah, that's all right. In Bhagavatam, there are cantos. So, Brahma Bhuvanaloka Punar Avartinorjana Mam Upetya Tu Kaunteya Punarjanma Na Vidyate.
From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains by abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again.
So
Shri
what?
Isho,
Okay. Sorry, I'll just speak a bit. So what Sri Isopanishad is trying to explain to us, same what Bhagavad Gita Krishna is also saying, that this material world is a temporary place of misery. It's temporary and there is suffering here. So we may think, okay, I'm going to go to Swarglok. Maybe this is only on the earth planet. And if I go to Swarglok, I can have permanent happiness. No, but Krishna is saying from highest planet in the material world to the lowest. So the highest planet in the material world is Brahmalok. It's even much higher than Swargalok. If we see the structure of the universe, the earthly planets are middle planets. Below the earthly planets are the hellish planets. Atal, Sutal, Talatal, Patal. And higher than the earth planets are Swarga, Maharlok, Tapalok, Janalok. Then comes Brahmalok. Yeah. So Brahmalok is the highest planet in this material world. And even there is birth and death in the Brahmalok. There is misery even in Brahmalok. Although the ratio might be less compared to the earth, but even Lord Brahma has to die. Sure, he lives for a very phenomenally long time, some 3 trillion years or so, according to human calculation. But he still has to die. He also has to give up his position of being Brahma. Brahma is a post. The demigods, they are post, like the sun god, moon god, you know, rain god. They are all post. It's not a person. Anyone who's qualified can be appointed to this post. Just like Minister of Education, Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Transport, these are posts, positions, and one who's qualified, they get appointed in this position. So one who's qualified gets appointed in these positions of demigods, of Lord Brahma. Krishna appoints the people, the living entities. They are also souls like us. We are individual souls. Demigods are also individual souls. But because they are qualified, highly qualified, they are worthy of our highest respect because they are so much qualified that they can be the ruler of the sun planet, ruler of the moon planet, you know. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, if one wants to go to the sun planet, moon planet, whoever you worship, you can go there. Yanti Deva Pratan, what's that? Yanti Deva. Well, in the 9th chapter, he says, whoever you worship, you're going to go there. I'm sorry, not 9th chapter, 723. Let's hold it. 720. Oh, no, this is another one. What I was saying was that you worship the demigods, you're going to go to the demigods. You worship Krishna, you're going to go to Krishna. This is what Krishna is saying. He's saying, come to the spiritual world. Don't be allured by the comforts of this material world because the comforts of the material world are temporary. There is more misery than comfort. One has to endeavor a lot to be in a comfortable position. And that also then it's temporary, it may go away. So even if one goes to the planet of the demigods, those positions are temporary. Once our karma to be in the demigod planet is finished, again we have to come to the earth planet. Again we have to create new karma. So it's like being on a Ferris wheel, going up and down, up and down. still being in the repeated birth and death, birth and death. But Krishna is saying, come to my Golok Vrindavan, come to Vaikuntha. Once you come there, there is no more birth and death. We don't have a material body in the spiritual world. We have our own spiritual bodies. Spiritual body is eternal body. It's permanent, never changes. That's our Swarup. Each of us have a Swarup. We are all individual souls, and each soul has its own form. Yeah, so Krishna is saying, come to the spiritual world and enjoy with me eternally.
Sri Isopanishad points out that one who worships the demigods and attains to their material planet still remain in the darkest region of the universe. The whole universe is covered by the gigantic material elements, and it is just like a coconut covered by a shell and half filled with water. Since its covering is airtight, the darkness within is dense, and therefore the sun and the moon are required for illumination. Outside the universe is the vast and unlimited Brahma Jyotir expansion, which is filled with Vaikuntha Lokas. The biggest and highest planet in the Brahma Jyotir is Krishna Loka or Golaka Vrindavan, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna himself, resides. Lord Shri Krishna never leaves Krishna Loka, although he dwells there with his eternal associates. He is omnipresent throughout the complete material and spiritual cosmic manifestations. This fact has already been explained in Mantra 4. The Lord is present everywhere, just like the sun, yet he is situated in one place, just as the sun is situated in its own undeviating orbit.
So the sun is there on our head. So suppose we speak of, say, now Panama, okay, sun is on our head, it's daytime in Chile, in Ecuador, all these neighboring countries. Everyone will say the sun is on my head. But it doesn't mean that the sun is a Panamanian sun or Ecuadorian sun, Chilean sun. Sun is sun. Similarly, God is God. He's the Supreme Lord of everyone. And he lives in Krishna Lok, Golok Vrindavan. It's the highest planet in the Vaikuntha Lok. So the Brahma Jyoti, the light which is coming from Krishna's body, that is the spiritual sky, Brahma Jyoti. And just as in this material universe, we have the material planets floating. In the Brahma Jyoti, they are the Vaikuntha planets that are floating. And the highest planet in the spiritual sky, that is Krishna Lok, Golok Vrindavan. And just as in the material world, we just said that there is sun, moon, there's so many different planets, and each planet has their own deity, the sun god, the moon god, like Yamraj is there in Patal. So like every planet has their own deity. So in the spiritual world, every planet has an expansion of Krishna. A Vishnu expansion is there, personally presiding over the planet. And Krishna himself, he is in the highest planet, Golok, Vrindavan. So this material world is compared to a coconut. There are layers. Coconut has layers. So the material world is also layers. It's like compact, tight, compact, with layers of earth, water, air, fire, ether, and each layer is 10 times thicker than the previous layer. It's so dark here. That's the reason we need the sun and the moon. If there were no sun and moon, we won't have light. And where is the sun and moon getting its light from? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, the splendor of the sun is coming from me. So the sun and the moon, they have the light because of the Brahma Jyoti. The original light is coming from Brahma Jyoti, the Brahman. And this Brahman is coming from body of Krishna. The material world is also situated on the Brahman. Everything is situated on the Brahman. So we can imagine there's like a white paper, and one corner of that paper gets covered by a dark cloud, and that becomes the material world. So material world is also situated on the Brahma Jyoti, the Brahman. But it's dark because of this Mahatattva, the covering of material energy that is there. But Krishna is saying, come out of this material world. There are many planets in the material world, many universes, but it's temporary. He's saying, come to the spiritual world, because we are spiritual beings, we are souls. So we are eternal. So he's saying, come to the eternal world, the spiritual world. Is that okay? Did anyone have any comments or any questions?
Yeah. Can you please explain again the comparison that they did with the coconut and the earth?
Okay, so like
the
coconut
coconut
has
is covered.
layers, right? And coconut has layers, is half filled with water. Similarly, the universe, half of the universe is filled with the Garbha ocean. It's called Garbha ocean. On this lies Lord Vishnu, Garbhodakshai Vishnu. And then, just as the coconut has layers, the universe has layers, layers of earth, water, air, fire, ether, false ego, like that. And each layer is 10 times thicker than the earlier layer. So it's very difficult to get out of the material world. If we think we can get out of the material world by our own endeavor, it's not possible. We can go to different planets in the material world, just like Prabhupada mentioned in the earlier paragraph. We want to go to the moon planet, worship the moon god. You want to go to the sun planet, worship the sun god. But it's still inside this whole universe, material universe. It's still in the material world. There are many, many universes in the material world, unlimited, but they're still inside this covering of the dark cloud of the material world. So Krishna is saying, come to the spiritual world, which is eternal. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So we have just about 3 minutes left. Okay, we can read one more paragraph.
The problems of life cannot be solved simply by going to the moon planet or to some other planet above or below it. Therefore, Shri Isopanishad advises us not to bother with any destination within this dark material universe, but to try to get out of it and reach the effulgent kingdom of God. There are many pseudo-worshippers who become religionists only for the sake of name and fame. Such pseudo-religionists do not wish to get out of this universe and reach the spiritual sky. They only want to maintain the status quo in the material world under the garb of worshipping the Lord. The atheists and impersonalists lead such foolish pseudo-regionalists into the darkest regions by preaching the cult of atheism. The atheist directly denies the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the impersonalists support the atheist by suppressing the impersonal aspect of Supreme Lord. Thus far, we have not come across any mantra in Shri Isopanishad in which the Supreme Personality of Godhead is denied. It is said that he can run faster than anyone. Those who are running after other planets are certainly persons. And if the Lord can run faster than all of them, how can he be impersonal? The impersonal conception of the Supreme Lord is another form of ignorance, arising from an imperfect conception of the absolute truth.
So Prabhupada is pointing out, that Sri Isopanishad is saying that God can run faster than anyone. Now we may want to run to other planets, he's pointing out. We may say, I want to go to this higher planet because there is, I want to go to a heavenly planet because there's more enjoyment. So we are persons. So if God can run, God is a person too. Just needs a little bit of logic. So God is a person. People try to deny the personality of God, but that's not true. The absolute truth is a person. Krishna is God. He's a person. So thinking that, here Prabhupada is mentioning that thinking that God does not have a form, that is ignorance. That is imperfect knowledge. Like the knowledge, for example, if we are, Prabhupada would give the example, if we are seeing the hill from very far away, we can't see actually it's a hill. We think it's some kind of a cloud, something hazy. Now, when we go nearer, then we say, oh yeah, it has a shape, it has a shape and it looks kind of green. And then when we go really onto the hill, we can see, there are different types of trees, different plants, flowers, there's fruit, there's animals, there is waterfalls, so much variety. Similarly, when we try to understand God from very, very far away, we understand him as impersonal, that he has no form, he's just some light or some energy. But when we go closer to God, then we understand that he is a Paramatma in everyone's heart. And he is pervading the entire universe in his Paramatma expansion. He has entered every atom of the universe as Paramatma. And when we go even closer to God, we understand God is a person. God is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is perfect understanding of God. So all the Shastras are telling us this, all the scriptures are telling. And so Prabhupada is pointing out, Sri Isopanishad is pointing out, our real problems of life cannot be solved by going to another planet. Our problems of life will be solved if we get out of this material world altogether, go to the spiritual world, the kingdom of God. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll stop here for today. If there are no questions or comments, we'll stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, each and every one of you, for joining.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.